What's up, YouTube? If you've been watching this channel before, you've probably seen the video for the Venom Mask. And today I'm going to be doing Venom again. However, it is going to be She Venom, the Anne Wang version. And this is inspired both by the new film and the original appearance in the comics. So, without further ado, I want to say that I hope everybody had a happy and pleasant holiday. And let's go ahead and just jump right into the video. Okay, so I cut out my shell pieces. If you happen to purchase patterns on Etsy, the two main shell pieces are in two pieces, and you have to tape the pattern pieces together to get your full EVA foam pieces, unless you want to do them separate, of course. And the first thing I'm going to do is I've applied contact cement to each side of these V-cuts on both pieces, as well as the V-cuts on the chin and this large V-cut here. Those are the first things that I'm going to glue together on all of this. Okay, the next areas that I'm going to be applying contact cement to is the tip here, and from this corner here in the eye all the way along the flat edge to the rear on the top shell pieces. And on this piece, right above the mouth, the nose area here, right in the corner of the eye on this flat spot, I'm going to be applying it. And also from the top part of the eye, this hook piece here, all along the edge to the base. Now the foam does absorb the contact cement, so I always try to put a liberal amount on, and I give it at least 15 minutes to set before joining the two pieces together. At least 15 minutes. The thicker I apply it, usually a little bit longer, but if you let your contact cement sit for an hour, for example, you're going to have some serious problems with it actually wanting to bond. I usually find 15 to 30 minutes is best, depending upon how much contact cement you have to apply to your actual project piece. But I like to get a nice, decent amount. Alright, I was going to edit that out, but I decided to just leave that in. So, if that was some sensory issue, sorry for the tumble. But yes, I've glued the two shell pieces together. I'm going to go ahead and toss that off to the side. I'm going to set up my camera here and show you on film how I did it. Okay, so I'm going to start with the very tip here. And I'm going to line that up with the tip on the bottom of this, lining up my outside edges, and then simply pushing it flat. Now that that is joined together there, I'm going to go ahead and take the corner of the eye here and position it accordingly with the corner of the top, which will then form your eye shape. And then lining up these edges, I'm just going to roll it around like that. If you cut your pattern pieces correctly, everything will match up. There's no stretching or pulling or preheat forming necessary for this one. You literally just start from point A and end at point B. As you notice, I don't use registration marks or hash marks, although I will try to remember to put them on the patterns, and I am going to try to remember to do that. If you happen to purchase patterns and you don't see them, let me know and I will update them and send you the files. Although on the last build, which was the Rockabilly Batman cowl, I Did remember to put them on. All other previous patterns, though, do not have them because I do not use them. But here it is. Both sides of the shell are set. Next thing I'm going to contact cement is I'm going to apply it along the edges here and along the main seam between the two shell pieces, and I'm going to join the whole mask on both sides together. Okay, so I've got both sides here glued together, and I did this by matching up the bottom and making sure that all the lines from my V-cuts matched as I glued it together from front to back. And if you cut everything evenly, it'll all match up. But as it is, it's kind of just a bland, blobby shell. I mean, the tops of the eyes are sticking out. There's kind of a point here right in the middle, in the forehead. Looks like a cone head. It's got these square edges over here on the side. So to alleviate all this and make it look awesome, I'm going to use mainly two things. One of which is a heat gun. It has a low and high setting. It's a dual setting heat gun. This one I pick up at Harbor Freight locally. It's around $15. Depending on where you live, prices do vary. The other thing I have is a canvas mannequin head. I believe this is a hat making mannequin. And that was told to me by somebody in the comments, but I never actually bothered to investigate that. Bad me. But yeah, this is canvas. I don't use styrofoam. If you don't have or don't have access to or can't find one of these or can't afford one, just try to find something similar, like a softball or some other hard round object that you can put on the inside to help in your heat forming process. And how I do this is I place the mask on top here, and the first thing always that I do is I round out the cowl, like these pointy areas I was talking about. Right here you can see it comes to a V point. What I do is I use my heat gun and I heat up the afflicted areas, so to speak, and I use the mannequin head as a base to help round this out. And I usually work on an area, say 2 inches by 2 inches or 3 inches by 3 inches, and you'll notice already that some of that point is starting to round out right there where I heated and pressed on it. You go down a little further to where no heat was, and you have that very sharp point again. And I'm going to use the heat gun to round that out, and you'll notice on the edges of the V-cuts right here and right there, for example, there's kind of a point. A little easier if I show you on the back side, I suppose. Yep, see right there, another little point. And that is coming directly off that V-cut. Also on this outside edge and on the forehead area, just to get this as round and even as possible. Okay, now that I have some of the basic heat forming done, I'm going to go through, and I've already started to do a little bit, and use my Dremel to go ahead and sand down some of these seams so that they line up pretty even, and also so that can help take out any of my personal imperfections, so to speak. Alright, I now have this pretty well rounded out. I do still need to do a little bit of sanding on this one on both sides, but for right now, I've moved on and started to do some of the face shell. I didn't want to get too ahead of anything or make it too confusing, but I heated the back side of this area in here, and then curved it, and then heated the outside and curved it a little more just by curving it with my fingers and my hand to make the eyes round off and curve inwards to themselves on the opening here. And I did the same process on the bottom where I heated the inside and curved it with my hand like this, just flexing it around, and then heated the outside afterwards and curved that out. Next I want to put some of the final shape into it. I don't want this to just be totally round like this. the jaw as well is going to need to be drawn in, and this is going to need to be pulled in a little bit. But one of the first areas I'm going to start working on is over here on the sides, and that is the temple and the jawline area. I'm going to heat this and push it in a little, and then work in the jaw and start curving it. And then I'll come back and let you see what that looks like. Alright, I finished with the heat forming here, and the jaw itself, in a broad sense, I did heat and round out, and I pulled it out here but pushed it in along this back side on both sides, and rounded off each side of the jaw as evenly as possible, and put a little bit more curvature and fold on this going inwards, and put a little bit of a dip in here just to kind of give it a brow forehead ridge differentiation. And then on the bottom, had this come in just a little bit here and squared it off slightly here on the end, and heated the mask thoroughly on the inside and just kind of squeezed it in just a little bit to get less of a round shape out of it. And now I'm going to take my Dremel and I'm going to sand down like the edges on the lips, for example, and do a little more work on my seams, and also round off the bottom edges here as well so it won't catch or snag as much putting it on or off. Right, I managed to get all of my sanding done and rounded off areas like the jaw and the top part of the eye, but not the bottom. That's just an aesthetic choice. And I also went over my seams a little bit better. And next what I'm going to do is put in the upper jaw tooth mount and the lower jaw tooth mount. And those are going to go on the inside of this. Okay, and to glue this in, once again, I am using contact cement. Now, I only used 3mm foam for this. I would have preferred to use 5, but I only had black, and I didn't feel like the black foam was really going to line up well. But I glued this inside a 1/2 inch from the bottom here, and it just follows the jaw around like that. I'm going to go ahead and put in the bottom one in the same way. Okay, now that I have the upper and lower tooth mount pieces in, I'm going to next put in my mouth side piece, and this one fits in pretty simply. It just goes in the inside and it will butt up against the teeth mounts, provided that you have centered your teeth mount. Find the center of your teeth mount and make sure they're mounted evenly in the mask itself. These will butt right up against it just like that, and will help cover that gap on the side where there isn't going to be any teeth, but there's kind of going to be like some gummed webbing. Right, now that I have these pieces glued into the side, this is of course much more rigid, and it was rather flimsy, especially right here in the mouth area, and now it's not. That really helped to solidify everything and help hold everything in place so nothing gets crooked. And now I have teeth, so many teeth. So I gave some example patterns, but basically what I'm doing is I'm cutting some shorter and some radically longer. The longer ones, of course, are going to be here in the front, and it's going to get shorter down across to the sides here. And to get this from this flat shape to this shape, right here, I am taking a pin and I am sticking it at the very, very end here into the foam. And I'm using my heat gun to get it hot and then shaping and curving it the rest of the way before removing it. And that is how I'm getting this type of shape from this ugly blobby mess. Okay, so I have the basic top teeth all glued in. Now, as you can see, of course, I made all this out of 2mm EVA foam. It makes it a little tricky using the heat gun to get it shaped like that. I'm not going to lie. 3, I think, would be definitely more stable. Other options are just using some type of thermoplasty or Warbler variant like that. It's probably going to take about the same amount of time, but they will be more durable. Another one is to make molds of several different teeth shapes and just cast them all out of resin. I don't have the money for that, and I also want this to be as light as possible for my fiance. I don't want to wear her head down, so I'm going with the foam on the teeth. Now, I thought that I was going to have extra brown teeth left over to glue into the bottom, but I actually had to use one of the yellow, which means that since the bottom jaw area is longer, I'm going to have to make more teeth. So I have glued in all the teeth. And to glue these in, I have used super glue. And now that I am done with the super gluing part, I've reinforced the back here on the top with hot glue. You can see it's that bead right along here. And now I'm going to take my glue gun and I'm going to begin to go through here and do the same thing on the bottom teeth here as well. Alright, and if you were wondering just how many teeth that I super glued into this, the number is 85, give or take 1 or 2, because I might have missed some counting, but yes, 85 teeth, no joke. Okay, so if you have seen the Venom video, you probably have an idea what I'm going to do next with the hot glue gun and the mask. I'm going to use the hot glue gun to put some eyebrow definition. Nothing as extreme as what I did on Venom, but I do feel like I still need some. And I'm basically just going to use my hot glue gun to essentially draw in 3D on the mask, I guess you could call it. Make sure that She Venom's eyebrows are on fleek here. They say I don't really want to put quite as much as what I did on Venom, but I do still want to have some definition. I'm going to go ahead and decorate the rest of this like that as I see fit. And after I put on the first layer, I will put on a second layer on a lot of these to make it a little larger and have a little bit more depth. But what I will also do is I will hold it upside down, so that the hot glue will not just go flat or completely flat. And if I feel like I want it to spread out a little bit, I can just turn it right back up just like that and let it go ahead and do its whole thing there. So I have finished putting on my hot glue, and if you see all this pink and red stuff, that is actually a type of silicone made by a company called DAP, and the particular type is called Alex Plus. Well, there's a fast dry and a non-fast dry. The fast dry dries white, and this stuff dries clear. However, I put some red food coloring and paint in it for my carnage, and it's all I have around. I don't have money to go buy more. So this is what I got. It is tinted. It doesn't matter because I'm going to paint this whole thing black anyways before I do the airbrushing and everything else. But what I use this for is to fill the gaps in the seams. And what I do is I have this little applicator tool. You can also use a spare, like a used or extra, say, like an old gift card or something to just help spread it out. But I use this to just help work it and massage it into these cracks here. Then I just scrape off the excess. Now, if you get the fast dry, you can sand that, and it does dry much quicker than this stuff. This is not the fast dry. It takes a lot longer to dry. But with as thin as I put it in the seams, it doesn't take as long as what it says on the label. And the label says 24 hours. With as thin as I'm putting it here, you only have a few hours. Okay, I've done all the siliconing, and one nice thing about putting some color into your silicone is you'll notice where it's pink, it is still wet. And where it is red, it is dry or drying. So that's a nice indicator. I think I'm actually probably going to tint my silicone from now on, since I just, paint over it anyways. Now, one of the areas a little rough was right through here. You notice there's a lot of it. I literally just took my finger, globbed it on, and since this is an acrylic latex with silicone, it's water-based. So I just dip my finger in some water, and I smooth that out. Now, all these seams here, I did put one initial filling that I was showing you the first time on camera, and then I went back through after that dried and did a second, and then did all this stuff last. I'm going to let this sit probably overnight, because I'll be going to bed most likely before this is dried, and then we'll move on to sealing and painting and all the other fun stuff. Alright, so before I seal this, I'm going to take a brush and have some of my liquid latex that is left over from carnage, and I have some torn up pieces of tissue. And I'm going to dip my brush in the latex. Of course, I don't expect to keep this brush, since the latex will totally ruin it. And I'm going to go ahead and brush my latex onto the surface here, in between on this piece. Do something kind of similar on Venom. Smooth out any excess latex. Grab some of my tissue here with the end of my brush, and I'm going to just start putting this in here. I don't think this is really honestly like 100% necessary, but it helps to give it a nice wrinkled skin look whenever you can layer it in here just right. I'm going to go ahead and do this until I am satisfied. Now I have some tulip puffy paint, and as I'm waiting on my latex to dry, I'm going to use this to do some veins. Just a few little ones in the back and maybe on the side here. And if you're wondering why I didn't use the hot glue, I think I can actually get a much finer line with this. And I will also use this sometimes as well to do little trails off of the thicker sections of hot glue, but I'm actually pretty happy with this. I got some pretty fine points coming off here on the ends and stuff, so may clear up a couple things, but not too much. And just gonna go ahead and randomly put a couple of veins. A couple little spots like this about the mask and the black. And after that, I'll move on to sealing. Alright, so all this stuff from the smaller detail lines I did with the black puffy paint that comes up off of the hot glue sections here. And a couple little filler. And like I say, just some random veins. Like I say, I like the puff paint because it is rather slim whenever it dries. It's not super thick. And the super glue is kind of hard to get that thin. I wanted the definition and detail there, but I wanted it as subtle as possible. And I feel like that turned out pretty good. And my latex as well has sat overnight and is fully dry and has a kind of creepy, rubbery, skin-like feel and looks pretty cool. And next I'm going to need to paint this, but first I'm going to take some Mod Podge and seal this. I don't like using Plastidip on stuff like this personally, especially with areas like the teeth, and I don't want to mask it off and Plastidip around it. It seems kind of pointless. So I'm going to use Mod Podge, and I'm going to brush this on, going in this general direction, but I'm also going to kind of follow these lines as I put it on. So any texture that the brush leaves should hopefully help embellish everything that I have going on here by following the direction of what I'm doing. Alright, I've loaded up my airbrush with some createx opaque black that I've thinned out some with some water and some Windex distilled water to be exact. Alright, now that my basic primer has dried and it's nice and black everywhere, I'm going to go ahead and start painting in the teeth white. And for that I'm going to use some testors opaque white. Alright, now that my white has dried, I did of course get some overspray onto here. So I touched that up by simply holding the foam up to here and just following it around as I airbrush to cover the teeth so I can turn that nice and black again. And now I have my airbrush all loaded up with some testors opaque yellow. And I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of this onto the teeth, but not too much. I just want a light, thin overspray. Right, the yellow overspray I put over it has dried, and now I have some brown, and I'm going to go ahead and spray it up just like I did with the yellow. Alright, now that everything is dried, I'm going to take a brush and I'm going to use some of this clear Flex Seal, which is a polyurethane sealant. I'm going to put this all over the mask except on the teeth. The teeth are not going to get this treatment, but everywhere else is going to get this, and it's going to make it look nice and slimy and glossy. Nice stuff about this is it is self-leveling, so you don't have to worry too much about brush strokes because it will even out pretty well. Alright, here it is with the Flex Seal applied. You can see it is highly, highly glossy. And I really like this stuff because it rubberizes it. I oftentimes just use a clear coat, but once this stuff dries, which takes 24 to 48 hours, I applied one pretty thin, even layer, and was particularly careful to not let it get too much in the definition areas and thin that out as much as possible. Because, like I say, it does self-level, but man, it just gives it such a shine. This has only been about an hour. When you first apply it, it'll look a little bit milky, slightly, and that'll also tell you that it may be a little bit too thick and you need to thin it out. But man, once this just dries for just an hour, it has such a beautiful luster and shine. I really love this stuff. So I hope that my fiance is going to be happy with this. Right now that my Flex Seal has dried, it's time to put some lenses and paint some sheer cloth and place it in and all that fun stuff. So what I've decided to use is just some clear packaging plastic because it's lightweight and it's simple and inexpensive. She doesn't want anything heavy. And it just came from a package that held Dart Zone high impact rounds. Basically just a knockoff of the Nerf rival ammo. However, in the original Venom Mask video, I used 1/8 inch thick acrylic plexiglass. And this is from Source One LLC. I got it on Amazon. This, however, requires a Dremel or something similar to cut, and then in order to get it to curve, you have to get it very hot with a heat gun. I will try to remember to put a link in the description to the original Venom Mask video, so if you want, you can check that out and do that. However, I'm going to do this, and to initially put these in, I'm going to use contact cement, and I just started trimming them down until I got them where I wanted them. Well, at least this one. This one still needs a little bit more trimming, but I'm going to go ahead and contact cement these in. And once they're contact cemented in, I'm going to use a low temp glue gun with low temp glue sticks, and I'm going to seal around the edge of it just to make sure it doesn't come loose. Next, I'm going to need some sort of mesh or sheer fabric for inside the eyes. And I picked this stuff up at a craft store, and it is just some sheer ribbon. I've used this for countless masks. The other Venom Mask, Carnage, Batman, Red Hood, list goes on and on. And what I've done is I've taken some excess or scrap pieces of the EVA foam mat, and I've used push pins to hold it in place. Because next, I'm going to take some testors opaque white paint that I thinned out in my airbrush, and I am going to airbrush this white in order to obscure the face and the eyes a little more, and also just to take that shine off of it. I did end up going back through the middle. I don't know, well, I guess it shows up okay on camera, but I ended up putting a little more white through the center area, just kind of splotting it on up close on both sides just to make it look a little mottled. And I'm going to take some super glue, and I'm just going to put this around the edge of where I'm going to glue it down, and I'm just going to lay this in it and hold it in from the center and get it as smooth as possible till the super glue sets. And once it's in place, I will go over that with some hot glue. Alright, do a little bit of dry brushing with some white craft paint on the back of this prior to putting it in, just to increase the whole mottled look of it. And yeah, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this video. That is the She Venom mask. Okay, so one thing I've noticed about this Flex Seal is it is kind of easy to get smudges and dust and little hairs and things like that on it. And being that it has kind of a rubbery surface, it's a little hard to just wipe off. But I end up using some glass cleaner or Windex. I don't spray it directly on the mask, but I'll just put some on a paper towel. Or you can also just use some warm water and dampen a paper towel and wring it out. And then you can just use that to wipe all those smudges and prints right off of your piece. Okay, so that pretty much wraps it up for today's video. Hopefully this was entertaining, amusing, and inspiring. And as always, I want to thank everyone for watching. I want to thank all of you for subscribing to the channel. And the channel has been growing much more quickly lately. And that's all because of you. And as always, thanks for watching, and have a great day.